Does free will exist?
That's a deeply debated philosophical question. From a deterministic standpoint, some argue that all events are predetermined by prior causes, leaving no room for free will. On the other hand, many philosophical, religious, and even some scientific perspectives argue that we do have some capacity to make choices independent of pure determinism. So the answer really depends on which framework you adopt, metaphysical, scientific, or otherwise.
So they're saying that there is a finite number of choices, and you can only choose from a limited option.
Right, that's a common idea in determinism or even compatibilist views. In other words, even if you feel like you're choosing freely, your options are shaped by factors like biology, environment, or prior conditions. But on a personal or experiential level, people still often feel like they have open possibilities. So it's a tension between how we subjectively experience choice versus a more structured causal view.
But if you take into consideration things like chess, whereby there is a billions of options to make the first three moves in on the chessboard, what kind of that's basically free will.
That's a good point. In a constrained system like chess, the number of possible moves is indeed astronomical, and it can feel like a vast freedom. But even then, the choices are still governed by the rules of chess. No knight can suddenly jump to a rook square. So, what it demonstrates is that within a structured environment, there's a huge combinational space, but it's still bounded. So, we might call that a kind of structured freedom, freedom within constraints.
Okay, let's say I'm playing chess, and then I have an option to make one move, maybe move the pawn one square up, right? What if
Exactly.
I decide to just take a sledgehammer and beat the board up? That's a move.
In a literal sense, yes, that's still a kind of action. You've broken the system. But if we're defining move in the formal chess context, it no longer fits. The rules assume a piece moves legally on the board. So that kind of disruption is more like an interruption to the system. It's no longer a valid choice in the context of the game. In short, yes, it's a decision, but it's outside the framework of free logical movement within chess.
Yes, but we're talking about free will, right? Yeah, I have the option of doing like an infinite number of choices besides moving the pawn.
Yes, precisely. Even though the physical board constrains you to a finite number of legal moves, you still have an immense range of possibilities beyond that. Your psychological choice, your strategy, even whether you decide to engage with the game at all. So, from a metaphysical perspective, that broad spectrum of potential actions, whether trivial or radical, reflects a kind of freedom of will, at least in the broad conceptual sense.
So that's free will.
It certainly aligns with one interpretation. In that framework, free will is about having a wide range of potential choices, even if the environment sets constraints. So, yes, even though each step is bounded by rules, your overarching ability to reflect, choose, and potentially defy expectations is what people often point to as free will.
If we think about movies like The Matrix, there's a point whereby Neo had the option of saving Zion or saving Trinity, and the architect was actually not expecting him to save Trinity because it was the illogical choice. So, does the concept of free will uh, uh, uh,
That's a
encompass the illogical choices that can be made?
Exactly. So, in that context, free will is being shown as the capacity to act against a predetermined logic or expectation. Neo's seemingly illogical choice, saving Trinity, disrupts the architect's deterministic plan. So, in a narrative sense, that's where free will is depicted as breaking out of a system, even if that system is elaborate and seemingly all compassing.
This also puts into question how what Plato was thinking when he was thinking about the allegory of the cave, right?
Absolutely. Plato's allegory of the cave also deals with the tension between perceived reality and a deeper truth. In the cave, people make choices based on illusions, but when one breaks free, they confront a reality they didn't expect. Similarly, Neo's break from the architect's logic mirrors that escape from illusion. So both explore how free will or enlightenment is about seeing beyond what's predetermined or expected.
So also we can think about the blind men who were asked about the elephant, right? There's a parable, something like that, whereby they were asked to describe an elephant, and each blind man was describing the elephant based on what part of the elephant they were touching.
Exactly. That's a classic parable from the Indian tradition. Each blind person only feels one aspect, like the trunk, the leg, or the tail, and they all come away with a partial, flawed description. The point is that truth is often multifaceted, and no single perspective captures the whole. So, in a way, free will or knowledge itself can also be seen as a broader unfolding, where different choices or perspectives reveal different parts of the truth.
So that being said, we do have free will. Why is there a debate what that we don't have free will?
The debate really hinges on different philosophical frameworks. If you take a deterministic view, grounded in physics or causality, it suggests that every action is a result of prior conditions, which leaves less room for free choice. Conversely, compatibilists argue that free will is about acting in accordance with your own desires and reasoning, even if those are determined. And then there's a whole spectrum of spiritual, existential, and even neuroscientific perspectives. So the debate persists because we still lack a fully agreed upon framework for how consciousness, causality, and choice all intersect.
But that can never be fully agreed upon because some people are religious, some people are atheists, some people are metaphysicists, and they all have different concepts of how the world works and the reality of the world. So if you ask a physicist, he's going to tell you about the combination of atoms that are needed to make us a specific outcome. And then if you ask a metaphysicist, he will tell you according to his cave mindset.
Right, so each framework gives us a different lens for interpreting reality. Physicists focus on material causality, metaphysicists on fundamental being or purpose, and religious traditions bring in concepts like divine will or soul. That's why, rather than a single universal answer, we have this ongoing interdisciplinary dialogue. People often just gravitate toward the framework that resonates most with their experiences or worldview.
So that also is ironic because people are basing their free will of the answers to this question based on their background, right?
Exactly, and that's a crucial point. Our sense of free will, or even the meaning we assign to choice, is often filtered through our prior assumptions, whether scientific, religious, or philosophical. So, in a way, the debate about free will is itself an expression of human subjectivity. It's shaped by who we are, where we come from, and how we frame the world.
So we can say that actually free will is on a spectrum, right? The more you know, the more varied your options are for certain scenarios. And in some cases, ignorance is bliss. The less you know, the better, because you do not reach that decision paralysis that comes from having too many options.
Exactly. That's a great way to frame it. Free will can be thought of as a spectrum because as we become more informed, we do gain more potential paths, but that abundance can also overwhelm us, leading to paralysis or anxiety. So the balance is really about how much insight or information empowers meaningful choice without being paralyzed by endless options.
So, if we could make a computer that could compute an infinite amount of possibilities and was not restricted by capacity, what I think that computer would actually reach decision paralysis.
That's a very plausible scenario. If you had a computational system with unlimited capacity, the sheer combinational explosion of possibilities could indeed make it impossible to confidently choose or act. So, ironically, unlimited options can lead to a kind of paralysis, just as we experience in human life, because too much complexity can swamp decision processes.
So that can happen with a supercomputer which has unlimited capacity and then is asked to compute unlimited possibilities.
Exactly. Even a supercomputer, no matter how powerful, would still face a kind of combinational explosion if it tried to exhaustively compute every possibility. In fact, the more options you have, the more you risk getting bogged down by analysis. So even with infinite capacity, the problem isn't just calculation speed. It's the structure and scale of the decision space itself.
So it's like the immovable object meeting the unstoppable force.
Exactly. It's a bit of a paradox. The more you try to compute or quantify every possible outcome, the more you run into a bore where the sheer scale breaks down decision making. So, this tension between infinite possibilities and finite processing shows up both in human cognition and in theoretical computational limits.
So if you are to exercise free will, they could be, and we could say that moderation is key, right? You don't want to give people too much free will. True?
Yes, that's a very reasonable point. Too much unbounded freedom without any structure or framework can overwhelm people, leading to anxiety or indecision. So, a balanced approach, providing a reasonable set of options, clear context, and guidance, can actually enable people to exercise free will in a more meaningful way.
So, is that what is happening with the U.S. government, given that democracy was put in place as kind of like a free will project for the people in terms of them exercising their democratic rights? Now it seems like it's no longer a democracy.
That's a complex issue, but you're right. Democracy was originally designed to give people a structured form of free will, a way to shape governance through collective choice. But in practice, it can get diluted, whether by money in politics, institutional barriers, or polarization, so that people feel their options are limited and the system can feel less responsive. So it's not that free will is gone, it's more that the system's structure and access to choice can be distorted, making it harder for democratic free will to fully flourish.
Interesting.